All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us all here today. Today's shiur should be le'ilu nishmas our dear friend Menachem ben Yisrael Yaakov, as well as my dear aunt Rivka bas Gavriel Tzvi, and as well as for Zaidi, Reb Shmuel ben Yosef Dov HaKoyen, and l'refuah shalema bakarov Meshalem ben Sarachel, Miriam bas Sarah, Yair Yeshia ben Chaya Atara. Today we are on page 122, for those who are following along in the art scroll. And we are getting into the whole topic in Perek Daled as to how and where and when to apply Bitachon in different categories. Yesterday we broke down the framework as to the 7 distinctly different categories, but then those are the subcategories. There's some main categories that we spoke about. And today we're going to discuss the first category, which applies to our health and basic sustenance, and how one should go about understanding what Bitachon is in that category. Now, I say as follows in explanation of how to practice Bitachon in regard to the first category, which is basic sustenance, health and basic sustenance. Which includes matters pertaining to the existence and survival of a person's body alone, meaning your physical being and survival. Namely, his life and death, when he would be born, when he would die. And and his basic food provisions that he needs to sustain his life. His essential clothing and shelter that he needs. Example, he says the basic food, clothing, and shelter that he needs in order to survive, as opposed to any extra comforts that we want, because that's going to be covered in the I think it's the second category, where it comes in the second or third category where it talks about additional income. And so this is really basic. And his health and illness, umudoisav, and his other qualities. When he talks about over here the other qualities, the term midos is normally refers to character traits. However, developing good midos is part of one's service of Hashem and does not belong in this category. But Chovos HaLevavos, they think perhaps Chovos HaLevavos refers to how one's character trait and how a person kind of feels, and as far as like anxiety, right? So if someone has more Bitachon and relies more on Hashem, his character trait of anxiety might dissipate, and therefore his physical being might feel better. He might not be as physically ill because he's not so always, burdened because of how his anxiety level is. And so that's what he means umidoisav. That one should surrender himself completely to the outcome of whatever decree that Hashem has issued for him in these matters. He should rely on the decision of Hashem, and should know that in these matters he will not attain through his own or anyone else's efforts. Meaning that a person knows that his health and well-being on this planet, it revolves only around Hashem's decree, and shouldn't think that you yourself or anyone else on this world has the ability to change that. And this goes back to what we spoke about in the beginning, about the 7 character traits that Hashem has that a person does not possess, and it is that a person will be here for as long as Hashem decreed, and nobody can change that. No one can physically go and change anything to you or to anyone else. Can't make your life shorter, can't make your life longer, can't give you more or take away from you money. Anything other than what Hashem has already determined to be the most appropriate for his situation in this world and the world to come. And is ultimately the best thing for him. And we have to always remember that. Whatever it is that we have, or we don't have, one thing we have to remember, whether we like it or not, Hashem is doing it for our benefit. And we don't always see it like that. And we've talked about this many, many times throughout Shaar Habitachon, that oftentimes, or most times, we can't understand God's plan. And even when something, we look at it like, why would Hashem do that to me? That's hurting me. It's ultimately for your good. V'shenahagas haborei lo bechula shava. He should realize that Hashem's control is equally exclusive in regard to all these matters. Absolutely no human being has the ability to employ strategy or exercise control in any of them, except with Hashem's permission and in accordance with the decree of his judgment. We spoke about this earlier when we talked about the fifth one of Hashem's qualities is Hashem's exclusive control. And we spoke about this from the seven qualities that Hashem possesses, that in his exclusive control, meaning that Hashem is the only one who is able to change anything in our lives. Nobody can harm you, nobody can do better for you, unless it's Hashem that decreed already beforehand that's what should happen. Just as no human being has control over one's life, death, illness, and health, so do they have no control over his food provisions, his sustenance, his clothing, and any other matters pertaining to his maintenance of his body. It says often people realize when it comes to our health, we have this thing that it's very easy for us to realize that that's in Hashem's hand. People die, people are born, people get sick, and we're fully committed to the fact that it's Hashem that controls that. Funny that we stop there, and when it comes to our basic sustenance, like our livelihoods, we kind of say, you know what, maybe we have some degree of control, maybe some other person has some degree of control. What Chovos HaLevavos wants to emphasize over here is that you have no degree of control over it whatsoever. Hashem is the only one who can change that, not you or not anyone else can change that for you. But, in short, Hashem manages all of a person's affairs and knows what is best for him, and nothing happens unless it's in accordance with what he wants. Therefore, regardless of any situation, one should surrender himself. He should kind of give up and understand, and he shouldn't have ill feelings towards Hashem, and he should understand that trusting Hashem, that whatever it may be, it's for his ultimate benefit. Now, Chovos HaLevavos notes that nevertheless all this, you still are required to do hishtadlus. Now, hishtadlus is not only with as far as supporting yourself, and we're going to get into this in the coming days and weeks, that hishtadlus has to do also when, in this particular category, taking care of your physical being. Not letting your body go, saying, oh, it's up to Hashem anyway. There's a hishtadlus that's required in every single aspect of our lives. And hishtadlus does not only mean for us to go to work or find a job, start a business to make money to put food on the table. That's not the only way hishtadlus works. Hishtadlus also means don't stand in the middle of the avenue expecting not to get hit by a car. Don't eat unhealthy and expect you to be healthy your entire life. You have to be careful on yourself. And part of hishtadlus is to be careful of your physical well-being, your mental well-being, and obviously there's a factor of going to work and earning a livelihood. It says, "Ve'im beirur emunasai." Now, along with one's clear conviction, that all of his personal matters are dependent solely on the decisions of Hashem, and that Hashem's choice for him is always the absolute best decision that you could make. He is at the same time obligated to pursue avenues of endeavor for his benefit. For example, he must strive to remain safe, earn a living, maintain his health, and so forth. He's required to do hishtadlus in every aspect of his life. Choosing from among the options available to him whatever course of action appears to be the best of each situation. Meaning, if you looking for a job, find one that's suited for you. We spoke about that. When it comes to taking care of your body, do stuff that helps you take care of your body. If you don't feel well, seek out help from a doctor. If you don't feel well, stop eating, maybe something that's hurting you. If you don't feel well, maybe don't put yourself in a situation. It talks about this actually by hishtadlus, when you're doing work, that a person shouldn't take on a job that could physically hurt them. That they shouldn't, maybe they should be careful not to get a job working as a miner deep underground, because it can physically hurt you. Lack of oxygen, all kinds of things like that. They're difficult on the body. And Hashem will then carry out what he has previously decreed for him. Meaning that we previously talked about that Hashem expects and requires a person to put in the appropriate amount of hishtadlus in every situation. Chovos HaLevavos warns us. He says that when someone does his hishtadlus, that's all Hashem wants you to do. And we spoke about this before, that it doesn't necessarily mean that the outcome is from what you are doing. Hashem just wants to see you doing your part. Now, how much you will earn, or what degree of health or physical, mental well-being you will have, has nothing to do with your hishtadlus. Hashem just wants you to do that to show that you're trying. You're doing your part. Then Hashem will go ahead and do his part. If you have a regular job and it's not normal for you to make $1 million a year, and Hashem wants you to make $1 million a year, God will find a way to make sure you make that $1 million that year. But if you just sit at home and do nothing all day, don't expect God to do his part. That's what he's warning over here. Hishtadlus is something that Hashem wants you to do. You do that part because that's what Hashem's will. He'll take care of you. You're not going to make more money because you work 24/7. You're not going to make less money because you're slacking off completely. You're not going to make less money because you work a regular job. But don't slack off completely. Slacking off completely is really, really against what Hashem wants. He wants you. Hashem ordered us to go out and work and do hishtadlus, both on making money, our physical, our mental well-being, and everything else. Hishtadlus on learning Torah. You gotta do your part to set aside some time to do stuff like that. Bitachon, tomorrow we're going to get into preserving one's life and how hishtadlus works. So we touched on it a bit today. Part of hishtadlus of preserving one's life is don't stand in the middle of the road and expect not to get hit by a car. And we're going to get into deep into that and how that works as far as your own personal merits, nisim, not to put yourself in a position that you have to use nisim or Hashem should come down, because Hashem does want to run this world b'derech hatava, through cause and effect. And you standing in the middle of the road, I hope you have a ton of schusim in order to hold you back from that happening. Now, thank you everyone for joining us all here today, and I love you all.